Good?
Thank you.
Okay, can we stand for
Haututiru, whakataka ki tonga, ki e mā kina ki uta, ki e mā taratara ki tai, ki e hiaki ana ti atura, i tiro, i uka, i hauru, ti hei maurua.
Tēnā katoa katoa, ena mana, ena reo, ena waka, ena hauri whā, haere mai, nau mai, haere mai, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Sincere greetings to us all, to the strengths here today, to the voices here today, to all the canoes, to the four winds. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Therefore, welcome, welcome, welcome to us all, and recognising te wiki o te reo Māori. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll move straight to some introductions first, but firstly I just wanted to just thank our staff for, and actually our community, and for the work that was done during lockdown level 4 and level 3. So for staff, even though it was a virtual EOC, we didn't open up here, there's still a lot of work that goes in the background that most of us don't see is happening. So I just wanted to acknowledge all the staff that have been involved with that, and also our community that I think have behaved pretty well during lockdown levels 4 and 3. And happy birthday to Chris Peterson, a significant birthday today, and it's not 21. I'd now ask David Hopman if he might like to introduce the latest staff member.
Yes, I just wanted to introduce, we've got a new People and Culture manager, just started this week, Ben Joseph.
Hi, thanks, it's great starting. Thanks David for the introduction. Yeah, I started on Monday, so it's been 2 and a bit days now, so it's been a great welcome and I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead. I'm looking forward to meeting you all personally.
And I'll ask Narissa if she can introduce me.
Kia ora koutou. I'll get Mick to stand and say a few words, but I want to introduce Matthew Steele. He's our new Senior Policy Advisor, Economic Development. Started about 2 or 3 weeks ago in lockdown. I chucked a device on his front porch and he's been going well. Wairarapa boy, went to Wairarapa College and has recently moved back with his young family to Masterton.
Kia ora. Yeah, it's been a great welcome. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in. I come from MPI, so this is my first job in local government, so looking forward to the challenge.
Welcome Matt and Ben. Okay, moving on now to item number 2 on the agenda. Any conflicts of interest members to declare on the agenda? There appears to be none. Moving on now to apologies. We are all here. For public forum. Now public forum, as we were aware from last week, needs to be by Zoom. The area, there's only one part of the building as you come in the front entrance that's public, the rest is non-public. So we've moved to Zoom. We had Alan Kurt was going to speak on climate change. He's no longer going to be attending, but he will email something into us. So the next speakers are Steve Thorley and Karen Burgess from the Oxford Street working group. So I'll hand over to Steve and Karen.
Kia ora koutou, ko Stephen Thorley toko ingoa. It's nice to be here. I'd also like to introduce Karen, who's with me here this afternoon, and she's just sharing her screen on a community-led project that has been called Project Awatotara. Karen and I work with around 3 or 4 others on a working group to really lead, as I say, a community-led project with landowners, residents and other community groups in the Oxford Street vicinity. And our project is really around restoring an urban waterway towards the end of Oxford Street there. We've been working on this for around about a year, and it culminated in a really highly successful community planting day on the 15th of August, just prior to lockdown, where we had around about 80 adults and children from all spheres of life come and help plant something in the order of 300 to 400. We lost count of the total number of plants that we put in on the day around this waterway. We just really wanted to jump into your public forum just to really simply acknowledge and thank wholeheartedly the support of Masterton District Council to get to this get to the stage. And that happened on multiple fronts. There was active support from various councillors, particularly Councillor Mailman, who saw us in the early days on site, and Councillor Peterson came out to our planting day, and also we've had tremendous support from Councillor Ryan through the Lansdowne Residents Association as well, with funding support, particularly for plants. So just really wanted to acknowledge the work of both councillors, but also particularly of NDC staff, and that's really been led brilliantly by James Bryant, who's coordinated input from a number of council staff members there, and yeah, they've just been really brilliant and supportive. Not only James coordinating staff, but also at really short notice bringing in contractors to help with the removal of some trees to enable these new native species to go in. So yeah, that was all. We simply wanted to come along and just really express our heartfelt appreciation to the council for their support with this, and we're really excited about continuing the work in this area. We've, as I say, planted around about a 50 to 60 metre stretch of stream. There's a lot more work to do, but we are excited about what the future holds. So thank you again.
Thank you, Steve. Is Karen there as well? I'm not sure whether Karen wanted to say anything.
I don't really have anything to add. I think Steve covered it. Or am I on mute or am I speaking?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. I think Steve covered it really well. And we've just really enjoyed where we've got to so far, with support from so many different people, including the council, but also people in the street, and from the Tribe Church, and it's been lovely to get a really intergenerational group together. We've had, I think, people from their 80s to their, probably babies arrive, and people from a whole range of cultures. So, yeah, having a great time.
Thank you very much. I'll just see if councillors have any questions for you, and I'm sure you'll be happy to take those if they do. Does anybody have any questions of Steve or Karen? Councillor Holmes?
It's not a question, it's more of a statement. And Stephen, I've known you for a long time, and this is just a super shot of the community groups that are and catchment groups that are popping up around the area, and I compliment you all for what you're doing.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. This is a statement as well, following your lead, Councillor Holmes. On Saturday morning on Kim Hill's radio show, there was an English author who spoke specifically about the impact of projects like what you have done on the well-being of the community, not just the establishing and building of it, but the after effects of people using those. So kudos to you guys, that's a fantastic presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so do we have to wait for the Zoom connection for just joining the meeting now? Okay, hi Hewitt, can you hear us?
Yes, I think I can, thank you.
Okay, so now in the public forum we have the Masterton Action Group, the petition in relation to the Civic Centre. So I'll now hand over to you, Hewitt.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to just quickly mention that my presentation statement will take about 7 minutes. Do I have that time available to me?
Yes, we'll let you have 7 minutes.
Thank you. Your Worship and Counsellors, the Masterton Action Group in late July organised a petition to request the MDC to halt progress on the Civic Centre project. The petition requests that the project be delayed until the Council has a clear mandate from the community to proceed. And allow me to please be clear right at the outset, the Masterton Action Group is not and never has been opposed to replacing the Town Hall with a new Civic Centre. We indeed support a new Civic Centre, but we say quite categorically it should be located on the current site. We say it can be built for $15 million. We strongly support the library remaining on its current site with an extended building and the current building to enjoy some refurbishment and waterproofing where required. What our petition is asking for is very clear. We want openness, honesty and transparency. We want the information that will allow the community to make an informed decision, nothing more and nothing less. Surely this is what democracy is all about. We opened the petition to endorsement by the community in late July with the intention of leaving it open till the 29th of August. COVID lockdowns closed the petition down 2 weeks short of that date. While it was open, we received 1,832 valid signatures, an average of 611 per week. It is reasonable to assume that with another 2 weeks available to us, the total number of signatures would have totaled 3,053, or somewhere in that vicinity. This represents, and this is quite a crucial figure, this represents just under 25% of Masterton's adult population, according to the 2018 census statistics. There is no doubt that the Masterton community is divided on this matter. Your 2021 long-term plan and the so described consultation submission process following its release did nothing to clarify the matter. It just added to the confusion. The draft plan document asked that the community support the expenditure of $30+ million on a building with no conceptual design, let alone ready to proceed with detailed design drawings, specifications and costings. Further, your stakeholders, the ratepayers and residents, rural community, the business community, the arts community, everyone, they have no knowledge of where you propose to build this new civic centre. And if you are prepared to be honest with yourselves, and I'm hoping you can be honest with yourselves, neither do you at this particular moment in time. Following public consultation from the closure of the Town Hall in 2016 to mid to late 2018, you commissioned consultants Hallworth HTL in late 2018 and at a cost of just under $45,000 to present a report on the Civic Centre project, which was presented to Council in mid-April 2019. This report was prepared on the premise that the existing Town Hall would be replaced by a refurbished Town Hall or a new Civic Centre on the same site as the existing Town Hall. The release of the long-term plan, the 2021 long-term plan, stated there was a new site, and in response to pressure from the community, you advised the community that there is a preferred site, but that it cannot be disclosed due to that old adage, commercial sensitivity. Public feedback from the community suggests strongly and unequivocally that they want answers on this crucial question. We ask the question, what exactly convinced Council that this undisclosed site has sufficient advantages to it that the existing Town Hall site should be discarded? The community is entitled to know so that they can either support you or otherwise. As a concluding comment on the topic of a site for a new civic centre, we quote from the report, from the Hallworth report, dated the 12th of April 2019, from page 13. MDC have identified an opportunity to redevelop the existing Town Hall site and provide a facility that will meet the needs of the community into the future. And on page 23, MDC advised Board that the Town Hall site is the primary focus, and goes on to say, the majority of feedback arising from our consultation, this is Horworth I'm talking about, has been that the Town Hall site is seen to be preferable to alternatives. So yes, why is the existing site no longer the preferred site? This brings us then to the design of the building. Currently all council have admitted to is that they have an artist's impression of an imagined building. How can council possibly have arrived at a $30 million plus costing based on an artist's impression of an imagined building and on an unknown site that may have its own challenges for the construction of a building of the nature of a new civic centre? Council cannot continue to delude the community with such vague and unsubstantiated prognostications. Council is being dishonest with its community in attempting to do so. Finally, we make an observation that anyone in the community can relate to. If you are a business owner, a manager, even a homeowner, an entrepreneur or a developer who had a substantial project that required borrowings of $30 million to ensure it would proceed, and you went to your bankers with a proposal that has no design parameters or specifications for a rather large building to be constructed on an unknown site, how exactly do you think that your banker would respond? The response would be a categoric rejection. In this particular instance, the bankers you are relying on are your stakeholders, and you have treated them with disdain and arrogance. This petition is asking council to halt any further progress on its proposed $30 million civic centre and to undertake further consultation with the ultimate stakeholders of a new civic centre: the ratepayers, the residents, the rural community, the business community, the arts community. We urge you to have a frank and open disclosure of the facts that you have based your decisions on. Dreams and artists' impressions do not cut the mustard. And then we ask you to carry out a referendum of the whole community so that your community, the Masterton community you say you represent, can provide you with a mandate to proceed or otherwise. There is an alternative approach, which will only cost $15 million for a performing arts centre and exhibitions and conference facilities, while allowing the existing library to be doubled in size and some refurbishment at a cost of $5 million, utilising the existing site. Petition endorsed effectively by 25% of Masterton's adult community follows a hands around the wall protest attended by over 1,000 people and continuing disenchantment expressed regularly in the Times Age and social media. There were 5 letters in today's paper opposing your new civic centre. We urge you to accede to the request made of you by this petition. We urge you to apply some common sense, to take a deep breath and provide the community with the respect it deserves. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Hewitt. I'll just ask councillors, I acknowledge the receipt of the petition, and I'll just ask councillors if they have any questions. It's no comments, it is questions only for clarification of Hewitt. You're happy to answer those, Hewitt?
Yes, I am. I'm just struggling a little bit with hearing, so if you could, whoever is wishing to put a question, if they could speak up, please.
Okay, will do. Okay. Councillor Nixon?
Kia ora, Hewitt. I just want some clarification, because I think I heard this right, that the Ratepayers Association are supportive of a new civic centre?
Sorry, can you repeat that, sorry?
Can you clarify for me that the action group is supportive of a new civic centre?
We are supportive of a new civic centre, yes.
Thank you. So does that mean that all those who signed the petition want a new civic centre?
Sorry, you'd have to repeat that, I'm sorry?
Does that mean that all those who signed the petition want a new civic centre?
No, you can't assume that.
Okay.
Thank you. One more question. Why do you think we need to borrow $30 million?
Where is the money coming from if you are not borrowing it?
We've made it very clear that there is a substantive amount of external funding that is not borrowing that we aim to get from the community and external funding.
Okay. Any other questions or clarification? Councillor Nixon? Nelson, sorry, Nelson's mixed up again.
Hi, Stuart. Just a clarification, in your presentation you said that the council commissioned a $42,000 report, so that was commissioned by the council, and in that report it stated that the preferred site from those consultants was the current site. Can you just clarify that? Did I hear that correctly?
The Hallworth report is based on the a new civic centre going on the existing site. It's quite clearly stated in there that that was the mandate they were given by council.
Yep. So that was on pages 13 and 23 of that $42,000 report commissioned by the Masterton District Council.
That's right.
That report, I understand, cost $44,500.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Gaffel?
Your Worship, I've got 2 or 3 questions for you, but before I do, I noticed that, and this is just something that struck me last night, I noticed in standing orders, I really want to ask just a clarification of the standing orders on this. The standing order says that following the public forum, no debate or decisions will be made at the meeting on issues raised during the forum, unless related to items already on the agenda. Your Worship, will be talking later to items on the agenda of page 89 of our agenda, which are very much related to this petition.
No, there's not an agenda item specifically around this topic, Councillor, so understanding orders I won't allow. So ask your questions if you're embarrassed.
So you won't allow that? No. Thank you. Okay.
We will at the end of this ask for a report to come back from officers. That's the way that it's intended to be done.
Okay, no, that's fine. I don't have any problem. Hewitt, if I could ask you first of all, why does MAG see the existing town hall site as preferable to other sites?
Well, the most obvious reason is that you already own the site. You don't have to go out and negotiate to buy a site. My understanding is that there are very few sites around the town that are big enough to cope with the new civic centre that your $30 million proposal envisages. We're saying that, for example, the existing town hall site is a little over 6,000 square metres. My understanding is, and this is only from scuttlebutt around the town, but my understanding is that the site proposed for the new civic centre in your long-term plan is currently occupied by Bridgestone tyres, cross-country rentals and Kiwi Magic motor sales. That site in its entirety covers a little under 6,000 square metres. It's 100 square metres smaller than your existing town hall site. We don't understand exactly why you would want to move.
Okay. How do you? One of the things that did interest me in your presentation, how do you come to the conclusion that 1,832 represents 25% of the Masterton population? Adult population.
Well, I've explained in my statement, my presentation, that the 1,832 signatures were gathered in a 3-week time frame. Our petition was scheduled to last for 5 weeks, so we had arranged all our booths that we were setting up outside supermarkets and other places to cover that time frame. We lost 2 weeks. In the 3 weeks we picked up an average of 611, I think it was, votes, not votes, signatures. If you extrapolate that out for another 2 weeks, it gives you 3,053 signatures supporting the petition. If you look at the 2018 census figures, I think the census for Masterton was 25,557. If you look at the percentage of the age groups, this is all available on the Ministry of Statistics website. If you look at the statistics there, you'll find that slightly over 51, I think it's 51.4% of the population under 19 years of age. So the balance, 48.6, I think, works out at 12,000 odd people. And if you take our 3,053 and take that as a percentage of 12,000 and whatever it comes to, you get 24.97% to be precise, but it's near enough to 25% of Masterton's adult population.
Okay, Gary, have you got
just one more.
Make it a quick response, please, and then I'll go to another councillor.
Hewitt, you do say that the library should not be incorporated into the Civic Centre. Have you got any particular reasons why that is the case?
Could you just repeat that? I didn't quite catch exactly what you were saying.
Why do you see the library not being incorporated into the Civic Centre?
Oh, we do not think it needs to be incorporated into the Civic Centre. It's very popular and it virtually receives no criticism where it is. We agree that it is probably slightly too small at the moment. We agree that it needs some refurbishment. And there is some waterproofing that's required in the basement. We understand all that. You can do all that. We've had an estimate done for that work, and it can all be done for under $5 million. If you build on the site that you already own, you don't have to buy it. The site is right next door. You own it. It's covered by some Porticon buildings. You could expand. You could double the size of the library onto that site, refurbish it, do whatever strengthening is required, waterproof the basement, and you've got a wonderful facility that will last for the next 40 or 50 years without any problem at all.
Thank you, Hewitt. I'll just move on to Councillor Johnson.
Good afternoon, Hewitt. My question is, as you know, there was a majority vote to proceed with the Civic facility at a preferred location, which is subject to negotiation. If that negotiation wasn't successful, what would you expect Plan B to be?
You're asking if your negotiations for this unknown site are unsuccessful, what would our Plan B be?
What would you expect to happen?
I would expect you to revert back to the existing site.
Okay, thank you, Hewitt. Is there any other questions? Thank you very much, Hewitt, and you will have a response in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to the agenda, item number 5, late items. There are none. Item number 6, to be considered under section 48(1)(a) of the Goima. Could I have somebody move that we accept those in public excluded? Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Holmes. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to, I don't know if it's the same page numbers, I think it is, on Stella. Confirmation of minutes of the council meeting, page 101, the meeting held on the 4th of August. Is there any points for clarification from the minutes or correction? Councillor Johnson.
Just referring to page 103, Your Worship, which was the establishment of the Civic Facility Committee. Just one point, at the meeting I spoke with regards to a request whether I could come off that committee, which I understand we've had that conversation, but it's not mentioned in the minutes.
Okay.
And I felt that was important because it was a public request.
Yes.
And the second question is, recently you said that at the next council meeting you would have made a decision on who the new chair is going to be. So I'm just bringing that up to see if a decision's been made.
No decision has been made at this time, and it will come to council. And it's not for this, this is for minutes of that meeting, so it will come to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, any other points of clarification? There is none. So could I have a mover then that the minutes are confirmed? Moved by Councillor Gear, seconded please, Councillor Malman. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to the next minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of August, page 101 again. That's the, okay, is that a duplication? The 24th of August. Okay, the minutes are there for confirmation. That was held by Zoom. And could I have somebody, if there are any points of clarification? If not, could I have somebody move, please? Moved by Councillor Gear, seconded please, Councillor Peterson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to item number 9, confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting, also held by Zoom on the 30th of August. The minutes are there. Is there any points of decree? There appears to be none. Could I have somebody move that we confirm those minutes? Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Peterson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to item number 10, the report of the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 18th of August, page 401 to 406. So the report is there. It's, as you know, we have an independent chair for Audit and Risk, so if there's any questions that anybody has from that report. No, we're very quiet today, so there's no questions from that report. I'm happy to move. Is there a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor McClymont. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Sorry, that was confirming confirming the minutes and the recommendations contained within. Moving on now to page 301, which is a report of Infrastructure and Services Committee. I'll hand over to Chair Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, we had an update on infrastructure, strategic planning and also projects. Probably the main thing to note in the meeting was the pressure that was on the building department, and which is New Zealand wide, and with staffing and also contractors and getting work done. But I'm pleased to note that we're looking at trialling remote building inspections, which may take some pressure off this department, and in the meantime we're also looking for additional staff, but otherwise nothing particular to highlight. And I'll move the minutes of the meeting.
Are you happy to take any questions if there are any? Is there any questions? There is none. Is there moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded please? Councillor Holmes? No discussion, no, nothing further. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to the report of the Awards and Grants Committee meeting held on the 8th of August. I'll hand over to Chair Councillor Phil.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was a great process, as it turned out. We were a bit, I guess there was a bit of trepidation about the fact that the 25 applicants who wanted to talk to us were doing it by Zoom for the very first time, but it worked brilliantly. In fact, it worked so brilliantly that we're thinking that we should probably be doing that all the time. The presentations were absolutely magnificent, each and every one of them, and so that worked really well. And 2 days later we met to decide the grant allocations that had already not been done by staff, as you would know, with not a heck of a lot of money to spend and a heck of a lot of requests coming in, it's there are a lot of tough decisions to be made, and I would just like to commend the committee particularly for making those decisions in a very good and proper manner. I'd also particularly like to thank the staff who handled this whole process. It's a big process and they handled it brilliantly. So Your Worship, I will just move that the report be received. I would say that we are going to, as a committee, we decided that we would go back to staff and have a debrief on how the process worked. It did not work as well as we as it could have, in the sense that having the staff do the early allocations meant that we probably could have had more money go to some of the others. So we're going to recommend that the committee does all the allocations, and that's a policy decision which will come back for you guys to decide. So, Your Worship, I'd like to just move that the report be received.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? And then seconded by Councillor Hayes. Is there any questions from the report? Councillor Nixon.
Your Worship, I'd just like to ask the chair of the committee, why does he think his decision-making is better than the staff?
It's not a matter of the decision-making being better than the staff, Councillor Nixon. It's a matter of the fact that when you have a lot of events coming up for money and they're asking for big money, we felt that some of the lower allocations may have been less because they didn't. That would have given us more money to spend later on. So it's a matter. The staff did a brilliant job, and we commented on that. They did a very good job, but it's just that the process. We feel the process can be improved. It's going to be up for you guys to decide.
Thank you. Any other questions? So it's been moved and seconded, so I'll put that the report be received and the recommendations contained within it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to reports for decision. The first one is on page 121, the prohibiting of consumption or possession of alcohol at Castle Point and Riversdale beaches. I understand Terry's on leave, and Angela, is there anything you want to add to the respect to the report?
No, there's no new information. We had the offer of the police come to speak, but this report letter was deemed to be appropriate. So I'm happy to take questions, and Alex is here to help me out. Thank you.
Okay. I actually thought the report was, and the police report that was contained in it was really useful and contained some really good information. So the report is there with the recommendations. Is there any questions on the report? Okay, so someone to move, and then I'll open up the discussion. Moved by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Gear. So it's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? No. Councillor Peterson.
I just would like to ask, you know, now that we've got it, we've had it for a number of years, and there's been no more incidents. I mean, where are we going to find the line where we find we don't need that restriction?
I suspect, Councillor, that we haven't had issues out there because we've had the prohibiting of alcohol.
But we don't know that.
Sorry.
Seems to me that having read through those thorough reports, I thought they were great. And the last big incident they had was 2018. But that was at Castle Point, but the Castle Point crew were out there and there was a bit of a problem with the party in Riversdale, so they just moved over. So I think the coordination's really good. And I suspect this decision may have to be made annually. Well, I have no idea.
And then Councillor Melvin.
As a person that actually goes out to Riversdale during this time, I think it's absolutely vital that we have this thing.
for our families, and also that not just that, it gives an element of safety for people that are there. I do have a question though. What's the procedure if a lockdown or level alert happens during this period, and the effects of managing such a huge logistic nightmare is what I'm asking. Yeah, well, you know, if we do go into a situation like this, how are you going to manage? Because there's a lot of people that go out there. I'm just trying to figure out if that's actually being factored in, and maybe it's for the audit and risk people to, you know, committee to also have some sort of eyes over.
that question to start. I suppose we would manage it in any way that we do with our other levels of lockdown.
Yeah, if you're referring if we go into a level 4 lockdown during summer period, well, the rules would apply. In a sense, it would be easier to enforce because you are required to stay in your bubbles in your properties. But yeah,
Not Monica.
Okay. Councillor Marmon?
Yeah, with 91% people from those communities supporting it, there's no way that I cannot support it. In answer to your question, Chris, I think that it's probably some time off given the actions of two, well-intelligent people in Auckland going down to Wanaka in alert level 4. I think we're still a long way off before we take this away.
There's no further discussion. Can I have someone that moves recommendations? Have I done that? Okay, moved and seconded. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the recommendations here on page 121. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Moving on now to page 131. The proposed amendments to the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee Agreement in terms of reference. It is there, and I just wanted to remind councillors that those agendas and the minutes are on Stella as well for councillors to be able to have a look at as well. So the report is there. Narissa or Angela, did you want to speak to this report? Take it as read?
Take it as read.
Take it as read. Okay, is there any questions on the report? There appears to be none. Could I have someone move, please, that we adopt the recommendations on page 131, A through to E, moved by Councillor Deere, seconded by Councillor Ryan. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councillor Nixon.
Your Worship, I just wonder how you feel about how easy this is going to be to operate as a group, considering its size. It seems to me to be one hell of a large group, and I looked at a number of ways to see whether you could actually get some changes to it to actually reduce the size to improve what I would call better decision making. But I can't see any. But I have reservations that a group of this size is actually going to be hellishly effective because of the size of that group. So I'd be interested to hear whether you're comfortable that it is going to be effective.
That's a good question. I think I accept what you say. It is a very large group, but the people that are there need to be there. And a lot of this is my 8th year as mayor, and in the early days of being mayor, there was a lot of parochialism, particularly right through the Greater Wellington region. I think this is a huge step forward for us to work as a region, and the growth plan identifies where we should be going and what we should be doing. Having iwi at the table is extremely important as well. So, and Crown Ministers. So the groups, I understand, Auckland, I think there are a few that have been established now. They tend to be big groups because everybody needs to be around the table. And we've had 2 meetings so far, and Tracy Martin from now lives in Masterton, ex-Member of Parliament and ex-Minister. She chairs it, and so I think as an independent chair, I think it will work, but yeah, I take your concerns on board, but I think we all have to be there. Any other discussion? Councillor Peterson?
I guess it's going to, the tricky bit is going to be to define what's a topic to be decided at that level, and what's still to be decided at the level of the individual council. I guess it's a new room, and we'll just see how it pans out.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I made the sort of noted that the agendas and the minutes, obviously, from the previous meetings will be on Stella, and I really do encourage us all councillors to have a read of them, and that's a bit of a oversight role for councillors as well, to see, hey, is this where we feel comfortable going? So I think that's important to know. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. There's nothing else. I'll put the motion forward under the recommendations A to E on page 131. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, motion is carried. Moving on now to page 155, the economic development arrangements. So those that attended the Waireka combined council meeting, this was discussed there, and since then I did distribute the Martin Jenkins report out to everybody and got feedback from quite a few councillors about the two options. So the recommendations are there. Narissa, did you want to add anything? Take this read? Take this read. Okay. So is there any questions of councillors from the report? Councillor Johnson.
I just had one question, that if this is agreed upon, when the changes are likely to come into effect?
Yes, good question. So it's currently going through the three councils' processes now, and the work will begin, as I think it may have already started, on drawing up the service level agreements with destination, with the three councils, destination, Waireka, and also with Wellington and
Still might take a wee while though, might it?
I don't know. I'll just ask Narissa. I'll put Narissa on the spot. What sort of time frame do we think for the service agreements, particularly with Wellington NZ? I think there's a willingness on everybody to work on this, so I think we hopefully can start work on that very quickly.
Yes, I think it would depend on whether the three councils agree to the recommended option first and foremost, and then us drawing up and negotiating the SLAs with Wellington NZ and Destination Waireka. We also will need to sort out what the cost share arrangements are going to be as well. So yeah, I'd hate to put a time frame on it, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, but that's just an estimation. It could be a bit longer, so maybe double that.
There is a willingness on all the parties. All the parties have been involved in these discussions, so there's very much a willingness to just get on and get it done. So I would hope that it doesn't take too long. But yeah, Councillor Livingston.
Your Worship, my concern is with the governance arrangements, or more to the point, the reporting arrangements for Destination Waireka. It has to report to its board, it has to report to us, and in some respects it's probably going to have to report to Wellington NZ as well. So from my perspective, that would be, having been involved with these organisations before, I wonder whether the council and Wellington NZ will work together so that there is one clear reporting structure for this organisation, rather than all three organisations going to Destination Waireka and asking for 3 separate reports. Little organisations like this struggle with the compliance, and this is one way where we can assist, I think, and ensure that there is one report for 3 organisations.
I think that's a valid point. I'm sure Larissa's noting it to ensure that we get as much of that one set of reports. Any other questions, Councillor Peterson?
Well, I think that's a good point, but I think this is the way forward that's probably the least disruptive and also ensures that Destination Wairaka will continue and also that we get this, the strengths that come from having an association with Wellington.
There's nothing further? No further? Okay, so the recommendations are there A to E, and it is on the proceed with option 2. So is there someone to move that? Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Nixon. Any other discussion? There is none. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the recommendations on page 155, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Okay, moving on now to item number 16 on the agenda, one on the High Court application and LTP amendment for Panama Village and land. Okay, you have the report in front of you. It's quite a comprehensive report. Marissa, did you want to highlight anything in particular from it?
Just to reiterate some of the recommendations. So following the resolution that was made as part of the LTP process, that we're proceeding with our alternative option, progressing work to make the vacant land at Panama Village available for more public housing. We've received some advice from Simpson Grierson about the processes that we need to follow in order to make a High Court application. And the advice that we've received is that we seek a further resolution today as part of this report, and also look to undertaking a non-financial long-term plan amendment to address this.
Thank you. I think you do mention in the report how long that long-term plan amendment process is. How long do we? Was that highlighted in the report?
How long
to do
it would
the
take?
LTP, yes, amendment.
The application process is expected to take approximately 6 months.
Yes, but the long-term plan amendment process.
Yep, so that's something that we still need to step out, and there will be a further report that we'll bring to Council in October.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any questions on the report? Councillor Peterson.
I guess that's really comes to my only concern is that this is going to take quite a bit of time to put in place, whereas the option that we had, the first option, could have been into that and started soon. And the crisis is a crisis, and it's a crisis now.
I accept that, Councillor. If I can respond to that, yes it is, but the number of houses we were building versus the potential that we have, the number to build under this with other developers that are involved will be a lot more houses. So I totally accept what you're saying, but I think longer term this may be the best to get the most houses on that side. Whereas we were only looking to fund, I think, 25. Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, is there someone to move this report, please? Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Ryan. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. There appears to be none. So I'll move, the motion is on page 160, A to D. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion is carried. Okay, move on now to page 168, and I will hand over to David Hotman, Acting Chief Exec, who wants to highlight anything from the report.
Thank you. I will say there's a lot happened since our last council meeting. Not the least the level 4 lockdown. I'd refer to that. I'd like to thank the staff, as Lynn has indicated. Perhaps we're more practiced, but we certainly took it in our stride, I think, and really kept the wheels running during that lockdown period. and that's a real credit to the staff and the councillors. You were on your Zoom screens for quite a bit of that 2-week lockdown period as well. In the report, I talk a little bit there about what the Kotahi funding decision that's been made. $2 billion has been borrowed from our future funding arrangements to assist in our maintenance.
Across New Zealand.
Across New Zealand, 2 billion. We're not getting 2 billion. We're only getting.
Just to be clear.
We're just getting the 2 billion we asked for. So that's very positive. That has some implications for us in the sense that we don't no longer need to borrow in this next 3-year period for our road maintenance work, which is a real plus. We'll be putting the bridges in that we plan. Well, the Clumbo Road bridges have been approved, or it's in the program. Still got to get it over the line, but it's in the program. And the question there is, where does this borrowed money get paid for in another 3 years? But in the meantime, we've got work to do, so we'll be using that, so that's positive. There's been ongoing discussions during lockdown, multiple meetings, information regarding the Three Waters Reform Program. We're still working through that information, and we're looking at holding a special council meeting at the end of the month to make some suggestions to DIA with regard to the Three Waters. So that's a work in progress. We've got there was some in the report. There's some economic development data which was very positive. That was pre-lockdown numbers, but certainly the Wairarapa economy is ticking along very nicely based on that information. We'll see how the impact of COVID, but it has been very positive. Also, we've got a preliminary annual report result there, very much in line with what we've shared with you in workshops. We've got a small surplus there, which is good because we've already allocated that in this year's budget, what you have, and the full report will be coming to council in another next month, isn't it? Yeah. So this is a preliminary report, but it is almost there. The other item in the report is just highlighting that we're looking at deferring the revenue and finance policy review. We've discussed that it's a complicated piece of work given where we are, and so we're proposing to defer that to the next term. So I'm open. There's a lot more in that report. It's very detailed. Open to any questions.
Thank you, David. Is there any questions of the Acting Chief Executive on the report? Councillor Ryan, Councillor Holmes, and then Councillor Nixon, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, David. I just wanted to refer to the part of the report which is the climate change report. And of course it talks about sea level rises and coastal damage. Now, what's our position like? What, from your perspective, what do you see our position deteriorating into, or how are you going to address it in the future?
How am I going to address it? How are we going to address it? Again, we've got modelling data that GW has done on options, potential sea level rise scenarios. There's more information being generated there. There is more modelling being done. However, our LTP does contain a plan. We've got a climate change strategy, and we've got a plan that we follow through. This council's adopted. It's now for us to work through that plan and implement those actions that are there. So that is the response that the council has agreed to.
Councillor Holmes.
David, the $1 billion payout, which we're going to get a portion of, how is that going to affect the subsidy money that we lost when the government took office? The $8 million, are we going to get it all back? So what I'm saying is the budgeted amount on roads and bridges, will we be able to do them all?
Okay. Yes and no. So our maintenance money has been approved. Again, the government isn't a bottomless pit for funding, so they were the first to share that. We have got our full maintenance money, so we will be able to address that. We've also got our Road to Zero funding. That is the government's initiative for safety improvements, so we'll be able to deliver for the Castle Point Road improvements that we've planned to do, that is funded. There is partial funding in our smaller projects. We didn't get all the money we asked for in those smaller projects. So while the bridge is funded, some of our other strengthening work that we identified, and especially our resilience work that was in the program, that hasn't been funded. So that will be a challenge for us, because the current GPS doesn't make resilience work on our networks a high priority. So that sort of work we'll have to look at. We've got a number of projects that we will be applying for separately on top of this program. They are in our funded program for the council, but they haven't been funded by Kotahi. We will be making applications and building a case, because most of the work, personally, the work that we see is good resilience investment. We should be able to make a good, strong case to the funding agency that yes, it makes sense. But this program is very much focused on public transport improvements, the big cycling program, and the maintenance spend. Some of the small projects that we won't be able to do is some of our the footpath connectiveness projects, and also some pedestrian crossing work. Those haven't met the criteria of Kotahi for funding, so those improvements will have to defer. So, but it is a good news story. We've got the majority of the money we asked for, and so we don't have to borrow for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Nixon.
It's a question of something that I don't think is in this report, but and I'm not sure whether I can ask that, but we've seen the announcements of around the Wapamwakau Dam, and I just was interested in hearing the CEO's views on the impact of that and what work the council will be doing around alternatives, and is there anything that has been highlighted by the collapse of the dam project that could impact on us instituting water storage in Kaituna.
Can I just refer that question to our workshop next week? It's an appropriate place for it. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks for your report, David. I've got 3 questions. One is that, yes, it is great news about the funding. And when we made decisions around the LTP, one of the reasons we deferred the CBD revamp was because of the lack of subsidy. And I wondered, you've mentioned, and there were disappointed people as well, because we didn't feel that we could support 2 major projects. I wonder what the financial implications would be if we brought that local funding share forward. Is that something that we'll consider?
Yes, I think it is. Yes, it is something we can consider. That funding is available to us. We still need to do the work. We haven't got our local share, so we'd have to look at it. Our next annual plan will be the time to consider whether we wanted to bring. It is still in the program. Remember, it's in year 4. Yeah. So, but the LTP also stated that if we could find alternative sourcing, the council was open to bringing it forward. So I would say this is a discussion to have in the next LTP, next annual plan, whether we want to look at striking a rate to support that and match the funding and develop it. So.
Yeah, thanks. And I just had 2 other questions. Second question, which is page 171. I noticed we've lodged 2 expressions of interest for housing funding. I just wondered when we expect to get a response to that.
And the third question, which I'll do at the same time, is the representation review, and I wondered what sort of response we'd had to submissions for that.
So, the application, Marissa, when do we expect to hear? We haven't been given a deadline. It is a process, so we've just put in expressions of interest. The next step is to actually do the application. So, and the wheels of central government work slowly, especially in lockdown. So no, I can't. Don't hold your breath. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. We will advise you as soon as we hear if we're in the shortlist, and then we'll actually make the full application.
Provides a good opportunity.
Yeah, it's certainly a real opportunity for us to get that infrastructure support funded. So we're hopeful that we will make it through that first process. And the second question, Matt, did you want to?
Yeah, we've had 24 submissions so far.
And when does that close?
4th of October.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Peterson, Councillor Geary, back to Councillor.
I'd just like to draw attention to those two groups of comments about councils or council staff. They're just sort of glowing reports of people who had good lives and good interaction with the people that they've been dealing with. That's in the library and the consent building. So, really congratulations to the staff. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor. Who else was next? Councillor Geary, then Ra, and then I'll...
Probably a question for David through your worship. The state highway improvements, Waka Kotahi, have extended the consultation till 5 p.m. Sunday. Have you had, this is probably a nice and easy one, a yes or no, any indication about where that may or may not be headed at this stage?
Until, I think it would be premature to make any announcements or decisions before they actually close the consultation. I'm hoping that we can decide it before the consultation closes. So, no, I haven't got any more information on that space.
Your Worship, you also preempt my question in terms of congratulations to the staff in terms of the lockdown period. Of course, this is a repeat of a previous lockdown period, but maybe with a different strand. And I don't know that the virus has given up on giving us more strands. And so I suspect that there will be a repeat period. And one of the things that I think is that our staff are able to work kind of different hours and the long hours and the different types of stress that they're under as essential workers in a one-off situation. But I would really like to know what our plans are for other work so that we can make it as easy as possible on our staff. And I do that, I ask about that, recognising, Your Worship, that our own CEO was the person in charge of the EOC last time, that the transition to a new EOC might have again told on his time in terms of one being the CEO and then being the transitional EOC leader. And so there's a quantity of work here that I think is that we need to plan for so that we can do that with a little more fairness to our staff. And so that's part of the question is what plans do we have going forward about that and what might we be doing now.
Sorry? You answer that. Yes, Councillor Smith has identified, yes, it was a busy time during lockdown for me, but I was very well supported by the team and by Solitaire, who was the alternate controller, Solitaire Robinson from Masterton District Council. So that part of it was challenging, but I think we met rose to the needs at the time. Yes, there is some work to be done. We've got a number of changes happening in the organisation. We are in a bit of a recruitment phase to get resource up the council, get people in to address those key roles. We are looking at our work program now as senior management team, senior leadership team, and so we will be reviewing exactly what we can and can't resource and getting back to you. I haven't got any more reporting than that, but you've raised an issue that is very much part of our thinking.
And just to add to that, if I can as well, it's also a responsibility of the other two councils, all three, actually, Greater Wellington Regional Council provides staff as well. But the other two councils are a lot smaller and they don't necessarily have the amount of staff, so it's trying to get fairness right across the region so that it doesn't all fall on the same people time and time again. And I know staff will work on that. But thank you, Ron. Okay, Tito.
I just had a question around the Youth Council with merging with Carterton as well. So how many people are actually in the Youth Council and how big would this group actually be? And how well supported will they be as well? I mean, considering the two councils will be sharing that responsibility, I think it's really important to know how, Brent, you may be able to answer that one for me, but...
I'll go to Colin first and...
Cool. Yeah. I can't give you a number on the exact number in the council. So the council has been operating as combined. And what is in the report is that through the work that Bailey's been doing with Carterton, they've ascertained that the councils will work better for the youth if we have, in effect, like a Masterton council or a Masterton chapter and a Carterton chapter, and they will meet probably 4 times a year, very similar to like combined council, where they will come together and work together. And that gets around a lot of things like transport. The council has tended to be, youth councils tended to be Masterton dominant because that's where it is, and it's harder for the youth to come from the other areas. And we know in South Wairarapa they've got a bigger challenge, and Carterton have got a commitment there to support South Wairarapa.
Thank you, Colin. Brent, did you want to?
Yep, I can speak to that. Karawhira, thanks for your question. Youth Council, we had a meeting on Monday. There was only sort of about half a dozen as school kind of gets back into the swing of things. At this stage, including Carterton, there are over 15 members. We sent 4 members recently down to Festival of Futures in Wellington when we could interregional travel. It was very well attended and very well received. They are starting quite a bit of mahi at school ahead of Mental Health Week. And one message that I want to make very, very clear is the fact that we have some very, very strong people in there with some very loud voices, which is fantastic to hear, and representing pretty much all of Masterton schools and the Wairarapa, with a little bit more work to be done with the likes of Kiranui. And probably just a bit of a mention to you as well, David, that Bailey is doing an absolutely exceptional job, so it's fantastic. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, but has there been engagement with those other rangatahi groups within the region as well, so that they can have representation?
Yeah, so that's actually still work in progress. Okay. Lockdown happened, and that kind of put the brakes on a few things. So yeah, it is still progressing. It's working well, but yeah, like anything, there's still more work to do.
Okay, I'll go to Gary. I know, Tina, I'll just do the people who haven't asked a question first.
Just on page 89, David, on the Civic Centre, the last paragraph which says including the release of the architect tender sort of interested me in the sense that we haven't yet decided on a site, or we haven't got a site for the Civic Centre, and we're looking at releasing an architect tender. I was just wondering how does that work?
Yeah, we are going to the market today, tomorrow, later today, around securing resources of a suitably qualified architect to help us with exactly what we need to do in preparing some concepts and preparing a design. So we do need to engage specialist skills to do that. We don't have anyone in-house, so that's the process we're proposing to look at.
Can I ask another question? I apologise, Your Worship. David, can you tell us then, if we're talking, we've gone through here, we've already spent money, it looks
what
like...
page are you on?
On page 89.
189.
We're talking, no, 89. We're talking about quantity surveying and how much money could you give us a rough estimate of how much money we've already spent on the Civic project?
No, not here. Sorry, I don't have information to hand, but I can get back to you on that. No, I don't think, sorry.
Okay, so I'll now go to Tina and then to Beans.
Your Worship, this is to the CE. I noticed that economic development stuff or economic indicators are all really high, and on the face of that, that looks like a really good thing. But where in our planning cycles do we reassess where we're at in terms of growth projections and economic? We're sitting at 6.3. I think when we did the LTP and the annual plan process, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were looking at a growth of around about 4.1 or 4.6, I think was where we did all our decision making on. So do we reassess in 6 months' time because of an extraordinary growth and relook at all of our and number crunch, or do we actually wait again till just the normal cycle?
So the key issue for the council is population or property growth. So the numbers in that thing were about business growth, so they're a little bit different. However, the LTP is basically a 3-year cycle document that outlines the thinking for a 3-year process. But if there is any changes, and the annual plan process will be a time where we'd sit down and say, well, actually, has the assumptions that we made in that 3-year plan come about, or do we need to revise them? So there will be an opportunity to do it, but the framework at the moment is that 3-year plan.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Just a question on the Civic Centre. I know we've had a bit of a reshuffle with project managers, with Sophia going on maternity leave, but I can't remember whether we've had a conversation about a project manager appointment for the Civic Centre. Is that going to be an internal opportunity or an external opportunity?
No, well, at the moment, yes, we have, with Sophia on maternity leave, she was leading that project. It's now been picked up by one of her team. Phil will be looking after the details. We have contracted in some services, or we've got a contractor on board to help us with the project management detail of that. That's a staff person to do that sort of role, where Sophia we've backfilled it with a contractor, and we are looking at advertising for some more. So that's part of the discussion that said we do need some more resource in that projects area, and we're actually in the market at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
More for your own, Your Worship. I was going to speak on the Civic Centre at greater length, but you did say earlier that that after that petition that a report would come back to us, and will we get a time to discuss in public?
I'll take advice from the officers on that and come back to you.
Yeah, it's just Your Worship that in the column that you wrote on just yesterday or the day before, you did make a public comment on it, and we would be like, some of us would like the opportunity to respond to that public comment. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor, Ran.
All respect for the promotion, but I'll resist it as I can. Your Worship, I would note that our current Civic Centre in thinking wouldn't be the first Civic Centre in Wairarapa, and that the responses to the other Civic Centres in Wairarapa, I think of Waihinga, Carden Event Centre, and also the upgrading in terms of the Greytown Library and as a community centre, and think about the responses and the reactions after that as a way of guiding us about how people think in terms of the event centre and just taking that on board in terms of how we might go forward.
Thank you, Ra. I think councillors are also aware of the petition that went to Masterton and of 2,000, and the petition that went to Greytown of 700 at the time that they were built. And interestingly enough, I spoke to Max Stevens today, who led the community funding for the Waihinga. So yeah, it's not, and we know from our trip down through the Lower North Island that Deputy Mayor had organised, these issues are not unknown. But I'm going to close the conversation there on this facility. Okay, is there any other questions from David from his report? There is not, so, sorry, Peter.
Just with the public policy one, understanding that we've got a number of taonga out there in the public as well, is there any way that you could work alongside those groups as well? I know you've got King Street Arts and Aratoi, but I'm thinking there are cultural ones.
Sorry,
out there. Who am I looking at? Thanks. To be included in that.
Kotahi, yeah, we're in our very early inception stages of planning. So we have been canvassing and doing a bit of pre-engagement with some stakeholders, but we acknowledge that there are a lot more groups that we need to bring into the fold to help inform the development of our first public art policy.
Kia ora.
Okay, so the recommendations are there on page 168, that Council note the information and approve the deferral of the Revenue and Financing Policy Review and associated rating review to the 2022 term of Council. I'm happy to move. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Nixon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Mayor's report, I actually didn't have too much, again, except to just thank staff and also elected members through the lockdown time. And I have been out and about a little bit, gauging and talking to different businesses across, and had quite a lot of intel from Burgess as well, to feedback to MB about they're interested in how the regions are faring and the issues coming out of lockdown now, that with Auckland still being at level 4. And I just think really what I'm hearing a lot of from a lot of the businesses, and Graham most certainly hears it 100 times a day, is the effect of the rest of the country being at a lower level, but our biggest, where our suppliers and warehouses are in Auckland, and the suppliers can't get through. No easy answers to that, but people, what I'm finding is generally still positive, and are pleased that we're at the level that we're at and that we're not Auckland, but it is causing no doubt a little bit of stress for those that are wanting those supplies. So just to let you know that that's a little bit of work that I'm doing at the moment. As David highlighted, the National Land Transport Plan was approved by government not so long ago, and the Regional Transport Committee, we had our meeting yesterday. Those presentations and that are on Stella as well from there. And Three Waters, I've had a lot of emails, as you most probably have as well, about the Three Waters and what are we going to do about it, and we should be, why aren't we having a referendum? And the clear message that I'm giving to everybody is that this is not the time to decide that. This is a government process, a government process. And this is the time that we ask the questions, look at the data, have a workshop like we are next week, and for some sort of way forward maybe by the end of September. But that's the feedback that central government are looking for from us. It's not a yes we're in or yes we're out, and it's up to them, the reform pathway from then on in and the consultation pathway from then on in. is what Cabinet will decide. And we'll, and we'll wait to see what that is before we take a stand on whether we think it's good or otherwise. So, so that's really all from me. So on that note, any questions? Councillor Nixon.
Your Worship, I noticed there was a letter in the editor's column this morning in the Times Age, which I found deeply offensive, and I wondered whether you needed some support for us to write a letter expressing our deep concern that such a letter should be published. I've seen a lot of stuff in the Times Age which I find deeply distressing over the last few months, but I think that's the pinnacle for me. I just wanted you to know that you certainly have my support in terms of a response to the Times Age, and it's time for them to lift their standards and start changing the way that they're dealing with letters to the editor, because they can't continue to be a slanging match and denigrate people in office in this community.
Thank you for that. I've had those conversations, not recently with the Times Age. I've got fairly broad shoulders after 8 years as mayor, and really I get more positives back than what I read negatives. So already this morning I've had 3 people comment to me, because as I said I've been out and about and talking to businesses, commenting about it. So what happens is when there's a lot of negativity, you get a lot of people say, hey, this isn't on, and I'm not worried about it. It's life. I'm fairly thick skinned. Right.
Your Worship, well, I admire your strength and your courage in this situation. There is some standards that we need to apply, and that while you might be strong enough, and I don't think that anyone should be taking that kind of criticism. I do think that sometimes that's applied to other people in our council, and that we need to say that's not the standard that we have in terms of comment about that. We expect difference. We should be taking that on in terms of dismissing it as something that can be published. I stand beside Tina in that, but I would also ask a question about other ministries. We've heard recently from MSD that they're wanting to kind of encourage urban centres to go to rural communities to help in employment, and that type of encouragement, in terms of the thinking that we had in terms of population, then starts to, there's an encouragement of the movement of population. One of the things that we're building towards is having an infrastructure that supports the population, and we based our long-term plans on that, working alongside some government departments that are doing that before we get any kind of recognition. Should be something that happens, so can understand what MP's thinking about, but it would be lovely to report back to other ministries where it's appropriate that they need to be working with us as opposed to just putting out dictates about what can happen.
Okay, I think that's really valid. Thank you, Grant. Just picking up about the media, I mean, our staff have heard what councillors said for us today. I was particularly disturbed and have had quite a bit of feedback about a comment to do with Mexican people, actually, which was a letter to the editor. And, I just thought that really was an totally inappropriate comment that to be published. However, that's the media, and we can and we have picked that up before. I also, have a strong view about the graphic that was put up about our fellow colleagues in South Whatever. The graphic on the front page of the Times Age was one of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah, that's where we are. And I forgot the other really, really important one that I'm hearing again, and we do it, is please, the messages out there is about supporting our local businesses, and I know that we all do that as much as what we can, but particularly our cafes and people who haven't been able to open and aren't constrained by suppliers, as a lot of our other businesses are, is just keep on supporting local, and hearing people going into businesses and saying, oh no, I don't need that now because I bought that online during level 4 and got it couriered here from some, that's not helping our businesses, that's not. And the business who couldn't open under level 4 has one sitting on the shelf. And, so really encourage everybody to support local.
Can I just speak? Thank you, Worship. And it would be great to see the council doing that. I understand that the council used to buy, the library used to be able to source their books locally. Now we source them from Australia, and it would be good if we can back up our actions, our words per actions as well.
We've had long discussions about that. I think that there has been a move to buying more from local.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, so that concludes the public part of our meeting. Thank you. So I'll ask for someone to move into public excluded. Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Marmon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Just stand up and have a stretch for a couple of minutes. And carry it on to close us.
That was cold before, but now it's